Thank you, Claudia. On behalf of all of us at Bates, I am so pleased and honored to welcome you to the first Bates International Poetry Festival, an event that focuses our attention, our experience, our learning and enjoyment on translations, a cross-cultural awareness through poetry. Beginning this evening and throughout the next 4 days, this festival brings you a glimpse into the best of Bates. So why am I confident in promising that to you? There are many reasons. First, what we are about at Bates, what we spend our days and nights thinking about, planning, and doing, is educating the whole person, not just the intellect, but the mind, the body, and the spirit, and not just for today, but for coming times. We recognize that our world, both internal and external, extends beyond ourselves across communities, nations, and worlds. And so when we set about developing a particular educational event such as this one, our faculty, students, and staff come together to plan, create, and execute a project such as this, building on their different sources of knowledge and world experience, each bringing particular expertise to create a new whole. Now think about it for a minute. What better context or what better area than poetry to do this? To build a cross-cultural awareness that by taking on a particular poem that's been written by an individual with a certain set of experiences in a certain time and place and context and culture, and then working to translate that, not into just different words, but into different meanings and language that itself has its whole set of understandings and culture and context. It's extraordinarily creative. Now, as a community and as a campus, the people at Bates have a long and proud tradition extending back to our founding mothers and fathers and forward to today. As an institution seeking justice and dignity and education for all people. For over the more than 150 years we have been a college, we have learned and accomplished much. Perhaps most important of all, we have learned that there is always so much more to learn. New ideas to be developed with new people in and from new lands. We are deeply committed to the emancipating potential of the liberal arts, recognizing that our education is situated in social contexts that are local, regional, national, and global. Each of these social contexts are essential to a Bates education, but I want to acknowledge tonight how much we value our local community as a resource, a setting, and a partner for the Bates education. To each of you in the audience this evening and in the days to come, we hope this festival will capture you in all of your being. We want to challenge you to use your mind, your heart, and your spirit as we seek to nurture your passion to engage in the transformative power of our differences as a means to intellectual discovery and principled action. Among our many distinguished and thoughtful alum is Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, educator, minister, and advisor to world leaders. His words inspire and inform us, and I think may capture at least one of the purposes of this festival. About his Bates education, he has said, "Bates didn't emancipate me, I emancipated myself. Bates provided me the much greater service of providing the context which supported my choice to be free." And so, let us begin this festival knowing that we will grow in our learning, our enjoyment, and our emancipation. There is much to learn and much to do better. We must use our time, our passion, and our actions wisely. And now it's my pleasure to turn to Professor Mary Rice Tifosi, who will introduce our first poet, and let the festival begin.
I am truly honored to be here and to introduce to you one of my favorite poets, Susan Pelletier. Susan is a Lewiston native, but we have to adopt a much wider vision in order to talk about her roots. Her family comes originally from Poitou in France, and members of her father's family traveled across the Atlantic in the early 1600s to settle in Acadie, which is today present-day Nova Scotia. As some of you may know, when France lost large parts of Canada to the British, the Acadians were expulsed from Nova Scotia, and Susan's family ancestors made their way to northern Maine in the St. John Valley. Later, her father, at the age of 5, came with his family to Lewiston, Maine, to settle. Her mother's family came from France at a later date in the 19th century and first settled in Quebec. Around the turn of the century, they joined the massive waves of Franco-Canadians coming to Lewiston to settle in the mill town of Lewiston and Auburn. Susan began writing poems when she was 11 years old. Her work gives voice to her deep connections to family and place in Franco-America, as well as her vision of social justice and dignity at home and beyond our borders. Her articles and poems have been published here and abroad in anthologies, literary journals, chapbooks, and political and environmental magazines. Susan has worked as a journalist, editorial consultant, market gardener, college instructor, and co-editor of a progressive monthly. She finds great pleasure sharing with young people her love of poetry and offering creative writing workshops. A pacifist, Susan is committed to nonviolent social change and has been an activist since her teens in the late 1960s. She's a board member and volunteer for Maine People's Alliance and currently serves on the statewide Housing and Worker Justice Committee, Campaign Vote Media Team, and the Racial Justice Strategy Committee. This year, Maine People's Alliance has taken a lead role among Maine organizations in bringing racial justice issues to the forefront of all of its work and offering trainings to other groups. A longtime advocate of local and sustainable organic food systems, Susan and her family participate in a Maine Products Food Cooperative, community-supported agriculture, and also grow and preserve their own organic vegetables, fruit, and herbs. By year's end, Susan hopes to complete a book-length collection of her poems, What We Gather, in November. I always make sure to include Susan's poetry in my own courses on French in Maine, the Franco-Americans of Maine. Not only because her work is finely crafted and enormously beautiful, but because the values that she brings to everything that she does give us a vision that is much broader than simply the local community, although that's where it is rooted. I am now honored to present to you Susan Pelletier.